Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here actually starting our next themed week. I am starting it a little bit early for fun. And, the next week, spoiler alert, is going to be Ghost Movie Week. And yes, Safi decided that this would be the theme. She could have picked anything. She could have picked, I don't know, it's Black History Month, so she could have picked a good actor like Denzel Washington or something. But no, she's like, I want to do ghost movies. And you know why? Because she wants to watch the movie Ghost again. She's so obsessed with that movie that she wants to watch that again, and she wants that to be like the highlight movie. So I thought that I would go back and watch some movies that I never saw when they came out. These movies that, apparently they're really, really good because they're really, really popular and they're franchises. And, the Insidious movies were some of the ones that I did not watch because I do not like modern horror movies. I don't think that they are really horror movies. I think that I don't know what they're like thrillers, because horror is very distinctive. When you see a horror movie, you know it's a horror movie. But there's so many movies nowadays where you watch them and you go, is that really horror? And it's gotten to the point where, like, I think that a lot of horror movies, they're almost like dramas. And this movie, let's just say it's kind of a horror movie. I mean, it's as much of a horror movie as Poltergeist is, and and I do think it's better than Poltergeist, spoiler alert, like a little bit. So this movie is all about a family, and they have 3 children. They have a baby, they have 2 sons, and one of the sons, named Dalton, at a certain point, he discovers something creepy in the attic. He falls off a ladder, and then all of a sudden, he goes into a quote-unquote coma. And really, he is not in a coma. He is trapped in this other dimension by this evil demon thing. And all these evil spirits as well are like guarding him from being taken out of there and brought back to the real world. And the mother and father, they got to figure out what's going on. They got to figure out like what to do, how to get their son back. I was kind of taken back because I think that the poster for this movie is very misleading. Because on the poster, you see this kind of creepy house, and you see this kid, Dalton, and he has his eyes open. And it's funny, too, because it almost looks like they computer-generated his eyes open. Like, because, the whole movie, he's basically sound asleep. So it's like they took one of those shots, and then they cut him out of it, and then they opened his eyes with, like, technology. They, like, clicked his eyes until they opened up. Like, that's what it looks like. But it's really misleading to me because it might be the Mandela effect, but I could have sworn that this movie was about a possessed kid. I thought that it was like the Omen type of thing, except he's not the Antichrist. I thought the whole movie would just be about, like, the kid's possessed. I didn't know that the movie was about him being in a coma and having to get him out of this other dimension. I mean, that's news to me. If I had known that, I might have actually given the movie a chance, because, like, the whole reason that I stayed away from it, apart from it being modern horror, is because I thought, I'm not really interested in seeing a possessed kid movie. So, yeah, this poster completely threw me off for all these years, So all these years, like, I was not watching this movie because of false beliefs and thinking that this is about a kid that gets possessed and his family's got to get the demon out of him somehow. And So that's kind of embarrassing, but I mean that's what the poster shows. It's on the poster. Like why is it like this on the poster? He only does this for like one scene of the movie, and he doesn't even look like this. He doesn't even like this looks like he's like a sinister kid, but in the one scene in the movie where he is sleepwalking and he like destroys the room, he doesn't look like this at all. So yeah, that's just kind of messed up. So overall, the movie was kind of dragging on and on and on for a while. I mean, for a while this movie was like an indie drama. It was like an indie drama that just so happened to have scares in it, and by scares, there were some really annoying like jump scares in this movie. So instead of watching the Super Bowl, I was watching this movie, and there were some moments though where just like all of a sudden you have like the sound is turned up to 100, and it's like, is that supposed to be scary? Like, that's not scary at all. Like one of the scariest things, because I want to tell you guys what a scare could be like if it's good and if it's effective. Back when I was a kid, around Christmas time, when we watched all the holiday movies, the Christmas movies, we would watch Home Alone. And you know the part near the end of the movie where Kevin runs to the house across the street, and he goes into the basement and it's being flooded, and then he opens the basement door, and the two thugs are there, Harry and Marv. Like, that scene was so scary to me as a kid that I would refuse to watch Home Alone simply because of that scene. Like, that scene scared me so much that I would like have like anxiety about watching the movie, about getting to that scene. And it really like freaked me the hell out. Like, it was so scary to me. And in comparison, you have these scares in this movie where it's like, oh look, there's someone there, accompanied by a loud noise. You know, there were a lot of moments like that, to the point of where it got really, really funny. Like, there was this part where it probably one of the funniest parts in the movie, too. The wife, played by Rose Byrne. By the way, she is really, really hot. I mean, I was surprised. Like, I never even realized she was this hot. Like, I guess, I don't know. Like, I was really shocked. I was like, wow. I never realized it before. It's another thing I never realized. Because I think I only ever saw her in Neighbors before. And when I think about Neighbors, I just think about Seth Rogen. And when I think about Seth Rogen, I want to throw up. So there's this part where the wife is home alone and the husband's at work. He's a teacher, which I think that's pretty cool. We'll talk about that later, though, because there's some stuff to talk about with that. She hears this, or she's outside and she sees this kid dancing around inside, which was already funny. And then she goes inside to see what the kid's doing and see, like, is that Dalton? What's going on in there? And then I think he, like, runs past in the hallway, and she goes into Dalton's room or something, or maybe it was the baby's room, I can't remember. There are so many moments of this movie of just people walking around these houses and just waiting for the jump scare to come out, like... But she goes into the baby's room, and she's searching around, and she opens up this cabinet, and all of a sudden, the kid jumps out of there, and he's like, hey! And he runs past her, and she's like, ah! And she almost has like a panic attack, and she drops to the floor, and she's crying her eyes out. Like, that was just so hilarious. Like, she's so scared of this little child ghost, and I was like... God, this is like cartoony. This is really, really bad. There were some other moments too, Or like there was this one like bad guy ghost, and he had like long hair. He almost looked like a character from Twilight, like, you know, one of those wolf guy creatures in the wolf family, whatever the fuck. He would jump out a lot of the times, and he'd just start smacking up the family. And, you know, like, I was like starting to laugh at these sequences that were supposed to be quote unquote scary. Like, I really didn't see what was so scary about this movie, because they didn't treat this like it was real. They treated it like it was a cartoon. They treated it like it was over the top, unbelievable. So it was really hard to kind of get into it and get immersed and get scared like they wanted you to be scared. You know, like another thing is that when this kid gets into a coma, you know, I don't think that the mom has any work, which is fine. You know, she's a mom. But one of the plot holes is that, like, the dad, he's a teacher, and how in the hell are they able to pay for all this medical stuff, like, when he's just a teacher? I mean, like, the kid, he is hooked up to all this shit. He's got to have all this care and attention because, like, they've got to, you know, they showed, like, they have to feed him through a tube and everything. And it's like, how in the hell, like, couldn't they have given the dad, like, a better paying job, you know, so that we could believe that a little more? Like, I don't know. There was stuff like that, and, you know, he even mentions at one time in the movie, it's just kind of a throwaway line, like, like, I gotta pay Dalton's bills by working at the school. And he just mentions that one time, and that's how Patrick Wilson talks too. Like, that's, I've noticed that in a lot of movies, that's like how he talks, like, the entire movie. I'm Patrick Wilson, and I'm gonna talk like this. I don't believe in any of these paranormal things. That's what he sounds like. You know, it's pretty hilarious. Another thing, too, is that, you know, one thing that I thought about in this movie that I don't think anyone else thought about is the amount of cleanup that they'd have to do. You know, it's one thing to go into this further dimension. It's called the Further. Very creative, by the way. Very, very creative. I guess it's more creative than the Upside Down. Or what was the other one? What? Okay, there's the one. There's the Upside Down. There's the Further. What was the one from Stranger Things? Was it like the dark side? No, that's Star Wars. I don't know. I don't really give a fuck. But one of the things I thought about was, like, after there was this one scene where Dalton was disturbed in his sleep, and the demons in the room, they screwed up his room. They just completely, like, threw everything everywhere. They threw him off of his bed. They destroyed all this medical supplies and stuff that, like, again, they're going to have to replace all that. How are they going to explain that? The ghost did it. Well, that doesn't matter. Here's thousands of dollars of bills that you're going to have to pay to replace all that shit. But one thing that I thought about was, like, I want to see the cleanup. Like, I want to see this family. They're struggling. They got to clean all this up. They got to clean up the papers that have been torn up into shreds. They've got to clean up this room. They've got to clean up all these sheets that have shit all over it from the ghosts. The ghosts need to take a shit too. And, you know, like, I want to see the cleanup. I want to see a movie called Paranormal Cleanup, where it's just after all these scenes where they're just so over the top, and they just destroy the room, and they just destroy all these books and bookshelves and beds and shit. I want to see, like, a crew come in, like, Ghostbuster style, and I want to see them be like, hey, we're the paranormal cleanup crew. We're here to clean up after ghosts. Any other mess is none of our business. And then, boom, they start cleaning up, they're vacuuming and shit, and you know, the ghosts are there, and so the ghosts are, like, turning off all their cleanup equipment, and it's like, oh no, the stain was gone, I just wiped it away and the ghost put it back, no, gotta scrub it out. Like, that's what I was thinking about. Because there were a lot of times in this movie where they just would destroy a whole room. And then all of a sudden, the next scene, the room is completely fine. It's all cleaned up. And it's like, what happened there? Like, did they stay up all night to clean that? They had to have. How did they get that all cleaned up? It's ridiculous. They need to get the cleaning lady from that show called The Cleaning Lady to come in and clean that shit up. Like, seriously, like, it's a lot of work to clean up. What did they do, too? Did they sing the cleanup song? Like, clean up, everybody clean up the paranormal shit mess. Like, what goes on there? Like, you've at least got to show that. I mean, see, in movies like The Shining, where, you know, they're actually scary, and they're actually, you know, about ghosts and things, they didn't make all these huge messes and things, because they knew people have to clean this up. And how are they going to clean that up? I mean, you think about the logic, too, of, like, you have these ghosts, these demons and things. Are they going to let you clean it up? Are they just going to stand by and watch these poor people, like, going like, ugh, my knees are killing me. I'm going to die. Oh, this is so hard. I can't reach. I got to vacuum over there in the corner. Like, are they just going to stand there and let them clean up the mess? No way, Jose. They're gonna use that as an opportunity to take advantage and to kill them. Or to do something to screw around with them. Like, in The Exorcist, too, you know, you had that one scene where just the shit's flying all around the room, and it's like, you know, they gotta clean all that stuff up. Even in that movie, you could say, Pazuzu? You got Pazuzu, the scariest demon of all time. The scariest demon of all time lets them clean up the mess? That's not realistic to me. That's for damn sure. So anyways, I spent a lot of time talking about cleaning up. Maybe I need to do some cleanup. Because now the mold is coming back again. Just keeps coming back in my room. And so I'm continuing to have allergy and sinus problems. So anyways, another thing to talk about, I guess, is the fact that the husband, he is not really the main character in the first part of the movie. In the first part of the movie, it's the wife who's the main character. She is the one who is encountering all this paranormal stuff while her husband is away at work. And he's also kind of trying to avoid these situations. He doesn't like to get into confrontations and stressful situations. And then in the second half of the movie, all of a sudden, there's this big switcheroo where it turns out that he is actually personally connected to the hauntings that are going on. After they bring in this psychic, which I would say that she was pretty good. You know, all the acting in this movie was fine. You know, the acting wasn't the problem. The problem was the script, among a lot of other things. But yeah, he becomes the main character, and sort of the arc that he has to go through is that as a kid, he was able to astral project, and he befriended some sort of a demon woman, or ghost woman, an evil ghost woman. They don't really explain it. That was one of the few things that I liked about the movie, though, was that they didn't really explain a lot. You know, one of the things that I don't like about paranormal movies is, like, if they go into these long explanations about, like, the primary monsters, you know, like, even in The Shining, you know, like, they explained about a lot of them, but then there were a lot of others. And it was just like, you know, who the hell were they? Like, who is that random bald guy with, like, the blood in the glass that he was drinking? You know, who was the bear guy who's doing the you-know-what to that other guy in that one room? You know, like, there's a lot of mystery there. And one of the things that I liked about this movie was that they didn't really go into who these people were, who these monsters were. You know, they kept it very mysterious and very, just very basic of like, oh, there's dark spirits and there's also a demon. Uh-oh. So he was able to astral project as a kid. And this ugly woman with the veil on her face, she really wanted to get into his body because she knew that he was going to grow up to be the all-star movie actor Patrick Wilson. And this psychic woman was like, no, sorry, you were never meant to be in Hollywood, biatch. So all she did was make the kid forget about it. And then the problems went away. But they really didn't. They followed them. And then his son actually inherited the powers of astral projection somehow. That was one of the other things that I didn't think was really explained very well, is that, you know, astral projection, it's not a power that can be inherited, you know, being a vampire or a werewolf or something. It's a power that, you know, they had a good explanation for the son. They said that the son, he was doing it without knowing it. He was thinking that it was dreaming, that he was just a superhero, and he was flying around in a dream thinking that he was just, you know, having a dream, not really getting outside of his physical body as a spirit. But how is it that the dad passed that power down to the son? I think it's really idiotic and kind of lazy and rushed. You know, the movie, all of a sudden, after being really slow and boring, all of a sudden it just like speeds up at like a million miles per hour when there's like 30 minutes left. And it's like, oh, I guess we're going to have to solve the problem in this movie, so let's hurry it up. And I think that whole explanation of, like, the dad having the power too, it was stupid. But it was all because they wanted to make the dad go through this arc where he would have to confront evil and he would have to confront the problem. And I don't know. I think that it would have been better if it would have been a lot scarier if they had to learn how to astral project. Because I don't think it's as easy as they showed in this movie, too. Like, they made it seem like it's a cakewalk. Of course, conveniently, though, they both are, the father and son, they're both very, very good at doing that. You know, they didn't even have to practice because that, you know, they don't know that they're astral projecting. So it's just, it's very convenient. Another thing I guess that I should mention that I liked is something that I don't think is like unique to this movie, and it's something that actually comes up as one of the movie's problems. So I guess I'll talk about the good and the bad of that topic, and that is that I like the fact that at the beginning of the movie they move into this house, and you think that the house is the problem. And then they move, and they're having all the same problems at this new house. I thought that was a great thing, because, you know, in a lot of these movies, you know, the problem is always the house, and the fact that there's history with the house. And so I thought that was a nice little twist on things, even though I know that obviously that happens a lot of time in paranormal movies and things. You know, even if the spirits were from the house specifically, they'll follow the family anywhere. But then that leads into a problem, which is when the dad is astral projecting. Let's talk about the further too, because I felt like the further was like the biggest letdown in human history. It was basically just like a big black hole. Like, it was just like a huge black abyss. And there just happens to be, like, buildings that are conveniently there. Like, the dad, he just wanders around in this black abyss for like 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden, the child version of himself points to the left or the right. It was the right, and then the dad goes that way, and and what do you know? He's back at the house that they were at the beginning of the movie, and I was like, "Ew, isn't that convenient?" And why are we at that house again if that house didn't have any significance to the story? Like, so that was kind of dumb. And, well, actually, maybe you could say it's because the kid got into a coma at that house, and so, it's like, oh, it all started there, so he has to go back there. I don't know, but still, it's like, that means that house is significant in some way, But I just thought it was such a letdown, like, this further place where the kid's exploring, he's going to all these different places, he's going to the girls' locker room, he's going to casinos and just flying around wherever he wants to go to. And then you have Patrick Wilson exploring the further, and it's just like a big black hole. And it's like, seriously? Like, this is what people thought was like the next best horror movie back in 2010? Like this very like uncreative, like further world where there's nothing there. Like, that's not creative at all. Like, that's stupid. That's really stupid. And it's even stupider. It's very ominous looking. And you're thinking about this kid, Dalton. He couldn't have been that stupid. Or could he? Because, like, if you're a kid and you just see this big black hole, why are you going to go into the black hole? Like, what kid would do that? Like, wouldn't the kid just want to go down the street and get an ice cream cone, or like go to the movies and sneak into an R-rated movie or something? Like, why would you want to go into the place that takes you to a black hole that like just he's got like a little lantern that he's wandering around with, and it's like, what kid is going to want to do that? Like, it's just ugh. And the fact too that like when Patrick Wilson's wandering around, they said that for both characters that they were both befriended by some of these spirits, but like these spirits never talk except for like one time at the beginning of the movie where the mom is hearing voices in the baby monitor that are I guess the demon's voices. But like, why didn't any of the spirits try to trick Patrick Wilson? Like, instead of doing that, the spirits literally just stand around so that they can wait to do a jump scare on him and to attack him. And it's like, why didn't any of them try to put on, like, the nice act and go like, no, your son's over here. You're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. And then, boom! Just attack him then. No, none of them even think to do that after apparently that's how they got the kid there in the first place. Like, isn't that kind of stupid? Isn't that kind of dumb? Like, are these spirits really that dumb? I don't think so. I just think it's convenient for the movie because the movie's got to end because whatever company that did this, I don't know what company it was. Let's look. What company do we blame for this movie? Yeah, I don't know who they are. Never mind. I thought it was Blumhouse, and I was gonna shit on Blumhouse again. But anyways, yeah. And and by the way, too, like, it is so convenient that the dad, the whole movie, he's like, he does not want to confront these situations, and then he has one face-off with the long-haired ghost. He gets knocked to the wall, and then he faces off with him again, and he's just magically able to push him over. And that part was also very funny and cartoony. Like, he just pushes him into another dimension or something. And at that point, too, that they were so uncreative that when the ghost got pushed into another dimension, all it was like a door opened and there was a big black hole in the door. So I guess it's another black dimension, another black hole, and the ghost just goes through there, and it's like, oh, bye-bye. It's like, really? That's the best you got? Like, I know that this movie didn't have, or I don't know how much of a budget it had, but couldn't they have done something more than that? To make it, like, scarier, to make it more realistic? Because you think about, like, realistically, there aren't a lot of black hole dimensions. There might be one or two, but the majority of these dimensions are probably very detailed and vivid and just really mind-blowing. And, it's kind of like in Doctor Strange 2, where, like, he only goes to, like, 2 or 3 dimensions, and, they kind of falsely advertised the movie and made you think that he'd actually be exploring all these different universes, and instead it's just like, oh no, we have a couple and that's it, and they're not really that creative either. We got this shitty dimension where people they fight through music or something, like, really dumb. And in this case, they don't really have anything. They have a black hole. And then finally he gets to, like, the lair of the demon. And this is, like, the only place where they try to create, like a scary world. And it's not really scary at all. Like, this stupid room, it's kind of cartoony, like a fairy tale even. And the demon is up in his own little room. And he's just... He's got, like, all these toys, like, all these vintage toys for some reason. Like, this demon is a toy collector or something. Like, I don't know if that's a part of his character. That would be pretty bizarre. In fact, you could kind of actually make an interesting story where, like, a demon was, like, also a really obsessed toy collector, and he's, like, he's haunting all these kids so that he can steal their rare toys. Like, that'd be kind of interesting. It could be kind of like Toy Story 2, with that fat guy, the fat chicken guy, stealing people's toys, stealing Woody and all those fucks. Well, you could actually have, like, a movie where, like, a demon is, like, a toy collector. It could be like Toy Story meets demons. And that'd be pretty cool. You could do that. Why don't you do that instead of this crap? But it's just like, it's so random. Like, he's got all these toys, and all he's doing is sitting there sharpening his claws while this weird vintage music plays in the background. It's really, really strange and not very scary. It's really kind of lame. It's such a lame reveal after the whole movie. You're like, where's the kid? Where's the kid? Oh, he's just shackled up in this room while this demon is up in his little toy collection room, fooling around with his claws. Like, isn't that kind of stupid? Like, the demon never even uses his claws too, by the way. Like, he's sitting there, I guess, for all of eternity, sharpening his claws. And he never uses his claws to, like, scratch people. You see all these, like, paranormal shows where people get the 3 scratches representing the evil trinity, like, and that means it's a demon. You never see that in this movie. The demon never scratches anything or anyone conveniently. The only thing, and I don't even know if he did this himself, but the only thing is that there's, like, a red handprint on a sheet. There's no explanation of, like, where that blood came from. By the way, like, that's another thing of, like, okay, there's not just, like, blood that's magically in another dimension. Like, in The Shining, it made sense because, like, or did it? Well, actually, it did, because, like, the blood was on the elevator, and the blood was, like, from the massacres that had occurred there, of, like, the Native Americans that got massacred there and all that shit, and all the blood is just continuously, like, in the elevator somehow, like, But, I can suspend my disbelief for that a lot more. In this movie, there's just randomly a handprint on this bed sheet, and there's no explanation, of why. Like, where did that blood come from? What person, why couldn't they have just, had someone get scratched or something, get scratched up, and then the blood from that? It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much work to do these things. And the dad is just so easily able to rescue his child. He unshackles him without even having to use a key. I mean, this all-powerful demon, he uses shackles that you don't even need a key for. I mean, that is just I'm just smacking myself in the forehead, seriously? He's that overconfident that, no one's gonna come and get him? That's stupid. Who does that? What demon is that dumb? And so he just picks him up and takes him on out of there. It takes him 5 minutes. As the pitch meeting guy would say, it's super easy, barely any inconveniences. It's basically just a big show at that point of all this computer-generated crap, and the house is shaking in real life, and there's all these ghosts that are suddenly crossing over into the real world. I guess they couldn't have done that the rest of the movie. They could only do it when it got to the finale, where everything had to get big and crazy. And that's what I really disliked about this movie, was that it was pretending like it was being so realistic and so, overly, it really feels real because, we sucked all the color out of the movie. And so it looks like it's real life. Not, in real life, there's no colors anywhere. All the color is sucked out of real life. Like, it sucked the soul out of this fucking movie. But then you have all these sequences that are so over-the-top, cartoony. I've heard people complain about in the later sequels that they get really over-the-top. But what about here in the first movie? They had this whole sequence where the psychic, she's hooked up in a gas mask for some reason, with this stupid machine that they came up with to make it seem like it's really realistic, because we came up with this fake ghost hunting machine where you have to put on a gas mask. And, because that looks cool. It looks scary. And it's no, it's just kind of stupid and lame. And, of course, the psychic at that point, she shakes around and you think she's dead. And at the end of the movie, after he's finally saved the kid, they basically don't have to do anything to defeat this demon, by the way. They really don't have to do anything. And we find out why at the beginning of the movie. We find out that they do a trade-off where the kid is allowed to come back, but then the dad was possessed by the old woman that he actually confronts. And again, he was just so easily able to confront her. He didn't have any problem doing it after the whole movie. He really, that arc of him facing these stressful situations was really poorly done. It was so fake and artificial. And of course, she possesses him. So at the end of the movie, he actually, I think he kills the psychic, because he's possessed by this old woman ghost. So the sequel's going to be all about getting him back. And it's I don't know about this. Because, how are there 4 or 5 movies in this series? Seriously? What? Another thing that I should have mentioned a lot earlier in the review is that at first the dad is having a lot of trouble believing the story, even though the evidence is all right in front of him. And it's funny because they never brought up, the psychic, she goes into Dalton's room and wanders around there, and it's only then that she gets the vision of this demon, which they never give him a name, very mysterious. And, but there's drawings all over the walls. And the drawings are all of the demon, or of him exploring the world and astral projecting. And, the evidence was right there the whole time. And so, number one, why didn't they at least bring up the possibility that maybe the psychic saw those drawings and then concocted, crafted her own story based on those drawings? Because that could have been possible. And then also, it was very convenient how the dad, he goes from not believing it at all to completely believing it because he sees the drawings. It's literally one scene, he doesn't believe it, but then he sees the drawings, and then he believes it. That's just... I guess they have to have their runtime. They have to have the hour and 40-minute runtime, so they gotta buzz through it and not really have it make any sense. But in all fairness, I did not want this movie to be any longer because it was very boring. Especially in the first half when it was like a family drama. And let's see. Okay, now we have the last thing to talk about. Now this thing was something that you guys, if you know me, you knew I was going to complain about this movie. This movie is everything that's wrong with modern horror movies. With how it looks, how it feels, the stupid jump scares. And one of the reasons why is because of the visuals. You look at the poster, they sucked almost all the color out of it. I just thought I think the poster, they did a good job of creating a creepy atmosphere. But in the movie, they sucked out all of the color. It is ridiculous. It looks terrible. This is probably one of the ugliest movies that I've ever seen. And since I'm watching it on my computer, I can't even turn up the saturation to 100, which is what I always do with movies like this, where they suck out all the color and they make it look ugly as shit, and they make it just look like trash. So I had to suffer through this colorless movie. And I don't know why they did that. They think it's scarier or something. It's really, really queer and pretentious. And I hate it so much. Because it's another thing that takes you out of the movie. Besides all the computer generation, besides all the over-the-top stuff that they do in the last part of the movie, the color of the movie, making it look so unreal and making it look so ugly and dull, it's a constant reminder that the movie is a movie and it's not real life. Whereas in Poltergeist, even though I really hate that movie, especially after what it did to the people in real life after the movie was finished, there was a ton of color in that movie. They didn't take any color out of the movie because they didn't used to do that back then. They wouldn't take any color out of the movie at all. But nowadays, they take a regular picture and they suck out all the color so that it looks terrible like this. And so I took a shot in the movie. There's this shot where Rose Byrne is bending over in the kitchen. I don't know why I picked that particular shot. I don't know. I literally just picked out that shot at random. I did not purposefully. I don't know. I don't know. But I guess you could say it is one of the better shots of the movie. And because at least it's a nice picture, even though they sucked all the color out of it. But you just look at this ugly-ass picture, and I'm going to display all three versions that I show you. You look at this ugly-ass picture, or just, ew. I mean, ew. it looks like a student film from I don't know, Tasmania. It looks like it just looks so ugly and gross. Like, who would want to watch a movie that's this ugly and just disgusting looking? I mean, what is the point of doing that? Because it's a horror movie, since it's horror, you have to make it look ugly as shit. But no, they do that for every movie nowadays. So, this movie, I guess, was one of the first ones that was doing it. And so they started doing it all because of movies like this, and that's another reason to hate it. Well, you know what I did? I put all the color back into it, or as much as humanly possible. And it is kind of a shitty quality picture because I took a picture of the computer. So, it's not going to look 100% perfect. But, look at how much better it looks. Look, I didn't even know those curtains were blue. I thought they were, gray or something. But no, they're blue. Look at the cabinets. Look how you kind of have some lights, some oranges in it. Look at the towel on the counter. Instead of looking like it's just black and white, you can tell it's red and blue and white. And look at that. It looks so much better. Look at the woman. She doesn't look like a vampire with white skin like in the original frame. She looks like she has skin, like she has blood inside of herself, and she's a human being who's alive. Look at that. It looks like such a better picture, even though it is still kind of ugly a little bit. Obviously, it's not going to look perfect, but it looks 1,000 times better. And finally, I thought, these people, they love sucking the color out of movies. They love making movies look terrible and ugly and dull. Well, let's just do that all the way. Let's go all the way. Let's go balls deep into sucking color out. Boom! Black and white. And you know what? This one looks amazing too. Because at least they're fully committing to it. At least at this point, they're not being dishonest, and they're not just sucking 75% of the color out. They sucked all the color out. And it actually looks a lot better than the original frame. I mean, because it's black and white. You know that there's not going to be color in a black and white picture. Except for those rare instances where you have Vincent Price's The Tingler, where in that movie it's all black and white except for the blood, which is red. I haven't seen that movie. It sounds like it might be okay, though. I could watch it in the future for this channel. But I thought that I would do that as an experiment, a demonstration to show you guys this is what they've done to movies, is that they've uglified movies. They've made movies look so ugly that it's really horrible to have to watch them, because you're sitting there and this is a movie. This is not real. I'm not able to take this seriously. So anyways, I thought also I would talk about my favorite scene of the movie. And I think it was my favorite because it was the funniest part of the movie. There's this one scene where I think the two Mormon-looking guys, because before the psychic comes, these two Mormon guys have to come and verify that there's actually ghosts there. And they look like a couple of Mormons. They don't even look like spiritual investigators at all. It's really kind of bizarre. Why did they make those guys look like Mormons? And they come there and they're talking to the parents at the table, I think. And the dad, Patrick Wilson, he's just sitting there I don't believe any of this shit. This is a bunch of bullshit. And he's very, very, he's not believed any of it thus far. But then all of a sudden, the red demon appears right behind him. And it's this huge jump scare. And it's just hilarious. I don't know why. It was really, really funny. The dad just still doesn't believe any of it. It's just it's so this movie. It was boring and comedic. it was definitely a movie that I'm glad that I skipped. I will be continuing to check out the series. I might not watch all of them. I might just watch the next one, but or I might watch the whole series for fun. In terms of food, I'm trying to think of something that I've eaten that wasn't what I thought that it would be. Because again, I thought that this movie was going to be about a possessed kid. I didn't know it was going to be about astral projecting and, sucking color out of a picture. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what to give this movie because I haven't really had much bad food recently. I haven't really had much that I could say like, oh, I was really disappointed by that. I guess actually the clam chowder that I made. So last week, I made clam chowder for the first time at home. And I was really excited because, clam chowder is something that I've had quite a few times in the past. I've never really remembered eating the actual clams in the chowder, though. I always just remember that it was clam flavored. And I always really loved clam chowder. Well, for this recipe that I got, you put canned clams in it, and you put a certain amount of clam juice in it as well. But other than that, it's really basically just potato soup. And it didn't help that we did not get all of the necessary clam juice that we were supposed to get. We only got canned clams. So we were missing another amount of clam juice that should have been in it. But still, when I finally tasted it, I was kind of disappointed. Because it was essentially potato soup with canned clams and a little bacon on top with a little bit of clam flavor too. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And honestly, I thought that this movie might be good. Like, I was kind of hoping that this movie would be one of the good modern horror movies, but it's not. It's really not. And really, the only way that I was able to eat that clam chowder is I had to kind of, add a bunch of stuff to it to make it interesting. So I put a slice of cheese on top of it. I put a bunch of extra bacon on top. I got biscuits and put, butter and honey and butter and jelly on it and shit. Because that was the only way that I could make it interesting. In the same way that while I was watching this boring movie, I was doing a bunch of stuff in the background to try to keep myself awake, because I finished this movie as soon as I woke up today, and still it was heavily boring to me. And it's because it's a bad movie, by the way. I know that a lot of people think that nowadays people have such short attention spans that they'll doze off at anything, but no, that's not the case. Last week I watched another movie for the first time, and I was so glued to the screen, it was like I was in a trance. That's how invested and involved in the movie that I was. However, in this instance, I was really just kind of sick of it by the end. I was kind of like, really? This is the popular horror franchise that it has 5 million movies now. Seriously? Okay, whatever. Anyways, please like this video and comment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Even though I didn't like it, it is really fun to talk about these movies and things, especially because I never thought I would actually watch this movie. Back before I reviewed movies, I would just avoid all the stuff that I thought would be bad. And so that's kind of the difference, is that now as a reviewer, I can't really avoid stuff as much, unfortunately. I have to suffer through it. because that's what being a reviewer is. You know, you have to suffer through everything so that you can honestly say that, like, yeah, it is bad, just like I thought it would be. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews of the Insidious franchise. And goodbye, everybody. See you soon.